Jake Ludington here at HP Discover in Frankfurt, Germany, and I'm here with Duncan Campbell, and we're going to talk virtualization. You did a keynote yesterday about virtualization, and can you kind of speak to that?
You bet, Jake. My pleasure. And one thing that we really had a great opportunity here at the show is to talk about our dreams and our ideas around Virtualization 2.0 and really how that's different. So Virtualization 1.0 is typically, a lot of customers have been through. It's been typically server focused, typically more grounds up, and customers had expectations that were very much around both cost savings and primarily greater utilization, primarily from a server standpoint. 2.0 has a very different point of view, in that it's more transformational. It goes well beyond the server. It talks about how to achieve these benefits. In fact, really, you do need to address some of the traditional barriers, obstacles, and that really has to do with thinking through performance end-to-end. So about storage virtualization, in fact, down to the client and the network. And what's really cool is we introduce kind of how you need to think this through in terms of that it's more than technology. So you need to address issues around process, around people, and we gave some specific use cases as well.
And so I assume you're not talking about virtualized people, but although that would be interesting. But so what has to change in terms of process and people to make virtualization work better?
Okay, so I think there are both some skill gaps that we can specifically address. We have some great programs around Expert One to do that. But I think importantly, it really starts to do with having more of a proactive plan. So by that, we talked about a specific case actually here in Germany with Commerzbank, where they actually did a fairly major acquisition of another bank, and they were really faced with adding 30% more people, and they actually had a directive where they had to reduce their headcount by 40% and at the same time improve customer experience. So the whole point is you got to think differently about that. And so part of that was they worked with our services team to put together a specific plan to talk about, okay, well, let's talk about, given that's the goal, what do we need to do differently? So an example is they had 10 applications and they were using 2 desktops based on the merger, and they said, no, I think we can actually do something differently. Let's think about a thin client, let's think about virtualization to the desktop, let's think about how we can increase the availability, and they were actually fairly successful in terms of reaching that end goal. But part of it is just thinking differently, having the plan, addressing like, okay, maybe there's ways to bring together teams in terms of either centers of expertise or other ways to really address this specifically.
So really, in that sense, virtualization stops being about merely how can we not need so many physical devices to run all of the server applications that we need, and how can we think about virtualization from the standpoint of the entire holistic organization? Yeah, very much. And so what's interesting, because it forces people a little bit out of their comfort area, that it's not just about the technology project plan, but it's about, okay, what are the processes, the skill levels, how do we make these decisions? But ultimately what's nice, it starts to get beyond the technology thing about, well, how does this really drive a business outcome? And thinking through how this touches the application. And then we can bring together a lot of different aspects of the technology that are very relevant, because when you think about virtualization, it makes the networking portion more significant. It exposes security more. So specifically, what can we do to address that? But within the context more from an overall plan. And I would say from there, we should probably talk to some of the experts about what is new in virtualization.
That's a great idea. Let's go ahead and do that.
All right, so I'm here with Michael, and virtualization's a pretty big topic, but can you break down some of the components that impact the enterprise?
Yes, today about 80% of all virtualizations, of all applications are virtualized now. And customers are doing really virtualization, and the problem today is that they use not just one vendor application virtualization software, they use multiple, whatever is available on the market. And the main virtualization vendors today are VMware and Microsoft. And if they start with virtualization, they see very quickly that virtualization is more complex than they think about at the beginning. And we want to help them to build very simple systems from the ground up, and we want to offer them pre-built bundles which help them to do virtualization very quickly and to build up cloud solutions on top of it.
If I could interrupt you for just a second. So what you're saying is that a significant portion of the enterprise is using two different virtualization technologies, commonly Microsoft and VMware.
Yes.
Doesn't that create the same issue of silos that we've been trying to get away from in the traditional data center?
In principle, yes, but we try to offer integration between both. We have integration for Microsoft and VMware, and both are working together as well. So we are offering complete solutions containing not just servers, it contains servers, storage, networking, and also management software which is needed to do virtualization. And we integrate everything for the customer in 1 or 2 racks. In the factory already, we install everything, and we build really a running system for the end customer which he can use. And integration does not mean just for servers. We offer also management packs for storage, for our storage devices, that the management console from VMware or Microsoft, whatever the customer is using, has all information available on one console, on one management console, and he can really configure and manage server, networking, and storage out of one management console.
So you've really simplified the experience, so it isn't two silos. It's as if you had a common platform.
So it's a common platform. You have one part number to order it, and you get, what is very important, you get one support number for the whole system. Server, storage, networking, management software for VMware and Microsoft, everything, one support number. And all integration is done by HP, and all management packs are really HP products with full support from HP.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to move along, and we're going to talk about the client portion of the equation now. So I'm here with Mirko, and we had just previously talked about the server and storage piece of virtualization, and I'm going to talk to you about client virtualization and how virtualization is evolving into the client playing a bigger role in the virtualized space.
Okay, like you said, we have been virtualizing servers and storage over the last few years, and now client virtualization is really the next thing that's coming. We see some big advantages in management of clients, in how we roll out and bring desktops to new users, and that's something that we are really looking at with client virtualization. Now the thing is that there are sometimes some challenges when coming to high-end users like CAD engineers and these kind of people, and we can also cover that with stuff like blade workstations, with our reference architectures that can help you with sizing the solutions. And also HP has some very good relationships to the major ISVs like VMware, like Citrix and Microsoft. And we will involve them in any projects that are coming around client virtualization.
So just as an example of the challenges, I mean, you mentioned CAD as a common thing. I do video editing, obviously. And how does stuff like that get virtualized in a way that is transparent to the user so that they don't feel like they're like running on a slower, older system?
Yeah, the issue has always been how to bring a graphics card into the game. You know, when it comes to virtualization, it's sometimes a bit hard to get very specialized hardware into a virtual machine, but that has been solved. And also HP is giving you a nice architecture with a so-called blade workstation that allows you to have up to 8 graphics cards by now in a single chassis, basically in a blade server shape. And that'll allow you to host all those applications that have really the high-end requirements to a graphics card.
So Alexander, I've talked to a couple other people about the client and the storage and the server virtualization, but really there's that overarching challenge of how do you manage all that. And I believe that Insight Control, which is a product that you are well versed in, is kind of the piece that solves that?
Yes, exactly. Well, with Insight Control, it's really designed to manage the data center. But in our virtualized world, you need to really not only to manage the data center, but really to manage your virtualized environment. And there we will jump in with our plugins, let's say for vCenter and System Center, where we integrate our management of Insight Control to the consoles which customers really use. Which means if you run vCenter, you can use our plugin, get all the features features of instant control in your own console, and the same for the system center. So we give you more flexibility, you can react much faster, and it's not that complex to use one single console, which you already have installed in your environment. So we see a lot of advantages and really a lot of need for such type of solution.
So you're talking about in the scenario where somebody has both VMware and Hyper-V from Microsoft running in environments. You guys are simplifying that management and bringing it all under one management console.
Exactly. We're not only simplifying, but we're really giving also the option for the customers only to use one device or one interface to manage everything. So it's not only much simpler, it's faster, it's more efficient, and it's also easier to understand what you're actually managing. So for a really complex infrastructure, it's really the best solution which you can use with our inside control and our plugins for different platforms, vCenter and System Center.
So Duncan, we heard from people in the server and the storage space and client space, and then the overarching inside control for management. Yep. But can you bring this back around and kind of tie all those pieces together for me?
Yeah, you bet. Good idea. So if you think about it, back in 2005, little company in Silicon Valley called VMware came up with a great idea, and we've actually seen it been executed and deployed in a fairly aggressive and a successful fashion, but primarily just as we mentioned, kind of on the cost savings, greater utilization. But I think the promise was greater initially. It was kind of more this nirvana. Now I think what you heard today is I think a much richer story, kind of what we call Virtualization 2.0, and I think that nirvana is now starting to show some real fruit and promise. So you bet it's about the technology, but the good news, I think the deeper understanding and capability that we can bring to bear, both around the process skills, the people skills, and putting together an overall bigger plan, I think that'll start to get the business impact and benefits that customers really want. So I think it's a big problem, and I think we've got a big solution and set of capabilities and services available today that'll really be very helpful. So I think when we think about that initial promise of Nirvana, it's starting to look pretty good out here in Frankfurt, Germany.